Hello. Game week 14. What are we doing? Here's my team. 2 transfers, zero point 0.7 in the bank. I think the biggest chopping block players is most people are selling on Bomo. He's on the chopping block. I think maybe my forwards, Wood and Rao, could be possible sells. Mikolenko, Lewis, Rogers possibly, but I think Mbomo is the one that most people are looking at to sell or thinking about selling. I haven't got a great deal to add compared with what everybody else has already been saying, which is that I think Mbomo, I can see why people are selling him. In my models showing up that he's quite low now as well. 0.27 XGI in the last 6 game weeks. He's been dropping off a little bit. 0.47 for the season. The last 4 games, nothing there. 0.2, 0.1, nothing there. A little bit disappointing. It's a question of like, do you think that's going to change? And it might against the tougher teams. Does he play in the top 2? Will he be more attacking? I think it's worth hanging on. I think I'm probably going to hold on to him, at least for Aston Villa, just to see what happens. See if he plays in a front 2. He's still on pens. He's still nailed. Good 90-minute man. Plus, Aston Villa are not looking great. Their XGA over the last 6 is now, they're now 8th worst. What's happening here? They're now the 8th worst. 1 clean sheet over the season. 1 second, let me check something. Sorry, I've been having tech issues. My video keeps freezing, but hopefully I'll get through this one. Aston Villa, 8th worst XGC over the last 6 game weeks. Only 1 clean sheet, conceded 22 goals in the season. They were doing better earlier in the season, but maybe fatigue, Champions League kicking in. So, and Martinez, I think, might be out with a broken finger or something like that. So it's probably a good time for Mbomo to play Aston Villa right now. So worth keeping, maybe, possibly, if he, I think worth just hanging on. Plus the replacements I don't think are that amazing, and a lot of them have quite tough fixtures. Like I was looking at Gordon at one point, but he's got Liverpool this game week, so it's worth just giving him 1 game week to see. And the other thing about Gordon is I noticed he appeared quite highly, but 0.57 XGI is he had 2 penalties at the start of the season, and he's not on pens anymore. So that's skewing his numbers. His non-penalty XGI is only about 0.4. 2 goals, 2 assists. 1 was a penalty, 1's a fantasy assist. So he hasn't been returning that great. So maybe Gordon is not as good as you might think. Cliver, his numbers are skewed because of those 3 penalties, so forget about him. Odegaard is the next one on my list. He is appearing highly, 0.66 XGI. Not quite sure how. I might have to look into those numbers. That feels a bit too weirdly high considering he's got 4 hard fixtures there. Man United, Fulham, Everton and Crystal Palace are all quite good defences based on the last 6 game weeks form. Everton and Fulham there. Man United, Palace, not too bad. Man United have been playing better defensively. So, but there he is. So he's an option. 8.3 though is a bit expensive, but I've got 3 Arsenal anyway, so I can't go there. Brennan Johnson was the one that I didn't want to sell last game week. I wanted to sell Mbomo to Saka and keep Brennan. And there just seems to be enough doubt amongst Tottenham fans that he might not play every game. And I just don't know if he played, even if he just misses 1, I still think he's quite good. 0.75 XGI in the last 6, 0.67 for the season. It's really good numbers. And even if you think he's just a tap-in merchant, he rocks up at the back post and taps it in. If tap-ins are easy, everyone would be doing it. And if he's the only one that does it, it must be he's good at timing his runs, or it must be a tactical thing. I don't really care how he does it. Like, if he just keeps doing it, then that's great at that rate. That's all you need. Bournemouth away, though, again, is a tricky fixture, so it might be worth waiting for 1 game week just to see and then bringing him in later. His fixtures do look a bit rough, but the model has factored that in. Well, for the next 4, Chelsea, Southampton, I guess, is not too bad. After that, it gets a bit rough again, so it depends how long you want to keep him. So at the moment, especially as I've just sold him, I've just about enough doubt around Brennan to bypass him, to go around him. But the Son is too expensive, so I won't be going there. Morgan Rogers, he's up there, so maybe worth keeping rather than, because I was thinking I could sell him, but he's still up there, 0.5, ticking along, good fixtures. It is including Man City as being an easy fixture at the moment. because of the fact that Man City are right down here. And I want to talk about Man City in a minute, but Man City, they're the 4th worst XGA over the last 6 game weeks, 3rd worst over the last 5, and the worst over the last 4. I hope I'm not repeating myself because I've just had to make this video 3 times because I keep getting tech problems. But yeah, worst XGC over the last 4 game weeks is quite bad. And so that's why. But it depends what Man City you're going to get. Will they still be like that, or will they get their act together? Is the question. And yeah, I'll look into that in a minute. Yeah, and then Gordon. So not Gordon. Mitoma's up there. He's a 0.5 guy, ticking along. Again, Fulham away is a relatively tricky fixture, so maybe you don't have to bring him in this game week. But then after that, Leicester, Palace, West Ham, Brentford, Aston Villa is pretty good. Aston Villa not very good defence at the moment. So he's fine. You could. I think it depends on how many free transfers you got. Because if you got plenty, then it's probably worth a punt. If you fancy just having a punt and Bomo to Mitoma or to maybe Bowen. But Bowen's like there. He's only a tiny bit better than Mbomo. Not much in it. He's got worse XGI numbers. Well, 0.35 is better than 0.27, but for the season, a little worse. But he's just got better fixtures. Leicester, Wolves, Bournemouth, Brighton and Southampton. Pretty good, apart from Bournemouth. So, yeah, it's worth a punt if you just fancy it. But at the same time, if you want to save some transfers, especially with the winter period, you don't want to use all your transfers up just in case there are injuries and stuff. It's not really vital to get rid of Mbomo. But we'll see. I think I'm going to give him Aston Villa. If he does well there, then maybe I'll stick with him. But if not, maybe I'll sell him. We'll see. And then also you could sell to a cheap player like Semenyo. Iwobi's here, but then he's got Arsenal, Liverpool coming up. Semenyo's probably pretty good. Not bad fixtures. And if you sell to somebody cheap like that, then you might be able to upgrade one of your forwards, which I could. I could upgrade like Wood to Jackson then. But coming on to the forwards now, though, my feeling about the forwards is still the same, which is that I don't think there's a great deal of difference between the cheap forwards and the higher price forwards. At least that's what the data's saying. Like maybe your hunch might say something different. So it's sorted from that metric there, which is that João Pedro, his numbers are skewed because he had that 1.13 in the last 6 game weeks because he was on as a sub, things like that. And so, yeah, for his numbers, once corrected for that, he comes down in the mix with everybody else, really. So Cunha is looking quite good. And once he gets that Everton game out of the way, West Ham, Ipswich, Leicester, I think what I'm thinking is that I'm probably going to sell Raul Jimenez after this Brighton fixture when he has Arsenal and Liverpool. And I'll probably have a punt on Cunha or Pedro and bring one of them in. I may go back to Raul or I may just stick with one of these two, but I can see that happening. So that's something that's probably going to happen. Haaland's there on about 22 points. Watkins, Haaland's too expensive for me, so I'm just not going there. Watkins looks good, but again, he's in the mix, like 21.41. Chris Wood's on 21.21. 21, sorry. If he plays all the games. If he misses one, he might be a bit lower, but so it depends on if you think he's going to play all the games. But if they all play all the games, they're all in the same kind of ballpark. So Watkins, yeah, he does look good fixtures. His XGI numbers are pretty good as well, but I guess I don't know why it's bumping his numbers down so much though. In the next 4, Nottingham Forest is a tough one. Maybe he's just not been returning that much, or it might be his minutes, 78 minutes per 90. Not sure, but his numbers are not that much higher than anybody else's. Same as Isaac, 8.5 million. But he's got Liverpool and Brentford are fairly tricky fixtures. Yeah, some people have talked about the minutes per 90, but most of these strikers actually get subbed off quite early anyway. It's only Haaland plays 90 per. That's his minutes per. That's his average minutes per game, 90 minutes. Cunha is 86 minutes. He averages, so that's pretty good. And there's Solanke's 89, but the rest of them, Pedro's 79, Watkins is 78, Isaac's 80, Jackson 79, Wiss is 78, Chris Wood is 82, a little bit higher, Evan Nilsson 77, Vardy 82, so Welbeck 84. So all of them get subbed off around about that time. Jimenez 78. So I think that's normal. So yeah, I just think all the forwards are kind of in the same ballpark. Is my feeling. But then that's what the data says. My instincts tell me that Jackson against Southampton could be a hat-trick kind of game. Or even, well, I'm not. I wouldn't go for Vardy, but Vardy against West Ham. Oh, I forgot to mention. I'll come on to it in a minute. But the forwards, yeah. So I think the forwards are all about the same. So I'm kind of feel like I'm happy to just keep these for now, and we shall see. I don't think I'm going to restructure so that I can get to an expensive forward. I'm not sure it's worth it, especially if it means I can keep Trent or something like that. But there was one other name I forgot to mention in the Mbommo replacements, which is Buonanotte, which I when I saw, I got very excited because I thought he looked like a great punt that nobody was talking about. 0.79 XGI in the last 6 game weeks, 0.63 for the season, and he's got new manager bounce coming in with Ruud van Nistelrooy, about to play West Ham, who are very poor defence. He should be nailed now. He missed a few games at the start of the season. He's had his suspension now as well, so looks pretty good, except there's a big caveat, which is that he can't play against Brighton. He's on loan from Brighton, so he's ineligible to play against Brighton. And so that's a bit of a pain, and then he goes away to Newcastle. But the West Ham and Wolves game are really nice. But then he's got Liverpool, Man City, Villa, Palace, Fulham, Tottenham. So, and it's Leicester, and he's 19, and you don't know, he's not really, it's a bit of a risk. But he looked like a really good punt. Buonanotte, I was very tempted to go there. And I'll definitely bring him in my challenge team, I think. But yeah, somebody who wants to have a punt. He's very cheap at 5 mil for that West Ham game. If you can bench him against Brighton and you don't mind playing him for these other ones, he could be a good punt. Buonanotte. New manager bounce, maybe. I don't know. It's a bit of fun. I'll probably be boring and play it safe, though, because he's probably a bit too risky for me. But so, yeah. Anyway, so I'm probably not going to do much. I'm probably just going to roll this game week. And the only really difficult questions is the benching questions. So in defence is tricky. So, I mean, you might think that I should probably do something like this. Sales I've made my bed with. Nottingham Forest got great defence, tough fixtures, but great defence. They're right at the top here. 0.87 XGA for the last 6 game weeks. 5 clean sheets. They're doing really well. Tough games, tough fixtures, but I'm just going to make my bed with him and hope for the best, I think. But the defence, double Arsenal and Trent, you would think I should do that. But my instincts tell me that there's a goal in these games for Man United and Newcastle. And I can actually see, this is just vibes, but my instinct is that these are the guys who are going to get clean sheets, Mikalenko and Lewis. I'm not sure if that's sensible to think that. I'm not sure. That's going to go down to the wire, what I do there. Maybe I will do something like that. Trent, Gabriel, and then I'll just do Mikalenko. So at least I've got 1 Arsenal, 1 Liverpool, and I'll just skip Lewis. I'll probably do something like that, but it's a tricky one. Let's Talk Handy was talking about having triple Arsenal defence, and he was talking about diversification bias, and if 1 Arsenal defender is good, then why not have 3? And I kind of disagree with it a little bit. I don't know if he missed the point or I missed the point or whatever, but I kind of feel like it's about your risk appetite. So if you go double or triple Arsenal and they get a clean sheet, you win big. But if they lose their clean sheet, you lose big. And it's much easier for one team to just get 1 clean sheet and then then you win. But it's also easier for that one team to get a clean sheet wipeout. And so it's about, you can either have your risk appetite, you can either win big or lose big, or you can spread your bets. And it's less likely that all 4 of these are going to get clean sheets when you've got 4 different teams. but it's also less likely they're all going to get clean sheet wipeouts. So I can kind of guarantee I'm going to get probably an average score with these 4, or I can just go double Arsenal and either win big or lose big. That's my understanding of it. And diversification bias is like, so it's presuming they're all relatively even options, which I'm thinking they all are. They're all kind of relatively even options. If you diversify into crap, if I diversify into a Leicester, a Southampton, and an Ipswich defender, then that's not. I'd rather have triple Arsenal. But when they're all relatively even options, I think it's better to spread your bet. Well, so it depends on my risk appetite, and I have said in the past that I want to be death or glory, go all in or go home kind of thing. But I think my instinct at the moment is to play it safer, which I need to think about. Maybe I'm contradicting myself, but yeah, I need to think about that anyway. Defense, how to play that. And it's a tricky one because you got Rob T's graphics. Rob T on FPL, he does the spread X markets and looks at the odds. They got Man City's odds at the top there. Now that's very, very challenging. Man City at the top there, 46%, and yet you look at this, and the last 4 game weeks they're smack bang at the bottom. They conceded the most XGC, the 4th worst over the last 6 game weeks. So how do you reconcile that? I have the same instinct that I think, Man City will get their act together. But will they? And what is this actually measured on? Who's measuring this? Is this the hive mind of the British society, or is this the hive mind of all the betting shop betting companies and them using their data to figure out to set the odds? How is that being worked out there? Who's figuring that one out? And how often are the markets wrong? Is betting against the markets a silly idea? Are they normally right? They probably are normally right. So, it's like, how do they work this stuff out? Like Man City, they have been awful, but then last season they were great. And they're still a lot of the similar players. And just here, they got a 0.7 against Wolves and a 0.2 against Southampton just a few game weeks ago. So it's that kind of idea. What do we think about that? Because maybe I should play Lewis then. If they're the highest chance of a clean sheet, maybe I should be playing Lewis. And you've got Arsenal are up there. Then there's Everton. Then Liverpool. Out of all of those, have the lowest chance of a clean sheet. Obviously, Trent though's got a good chance of an upside. So, don't know. Maybe it's Lewis, one Arsenal, and Trent, and I bench Mikalenko. Very tricky. So I'm gonna have to figure that one out at the last minute. It ain't got long, so that's a tricky one to figure out, and I'm not really helping much because I don't really know the answer to that one. Just sharing my thoughts. And then in attack, the bench option is Wood, Mbommo, or Rodgers. I've got to decide. My model has Mbommo as the worst, but then that's because again Man City is rated as a very bad defence, and Mbommo his XGI lately has been really bad. But if you think Mbommo is going to turn a corner and that Aston Villa are a bit rubbish defence, what's Aston Villa's clean sheet odds here? Aston Villa, they're quite good, so they think Aston Villa's going to turn a corner as well. Aston Villa as a higher clean sheet odds than Liverpool, that doesn't. Well, I suppose for the season they've been good, but yeah, you're just assuming they're going to go back to what they were at the start of the season. I don't know. Don't know who to trust, this data or the market data, or tricky. So, Mbommo, do you play? Who do you bench out of that 3? I don't know. I was going to do that. Keep the 2 penalty takers on, and I just would against Man City in their terrible defence. I kind of fancied that, but now I'm thinking I can see a clean sheet for Man City. It's very, very tricky, actually. Rodgers will probably tick along, he'll be fine. Although some people have talked about him getting a rest there. Super tricky to figure out. Some people have talked about Wood getting a rest even. Maybe being rested for that game like they did with Arsenal and playing Iwobi. Might be a tactical thing. Yeah, it might be a last minute hunch thing that I have to do. So I haven't actually decided. So I'm not much help, but I'm just that's my thoughts on it. So yeah, basically probably not going to do any transfers, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with my bench yet. That's all my thoughts, so probably not very helpful, but that is that. I think I will leave it there. So, and then next game week, I'll reassess and Bombo and maybe do Raul to Cunha or Pedro is what I'm thinking. Yeah, I'll leave it there. Okay, thanks for listening. See you later. Bye-bye.